Hello and welcome to Athlantic, the show where an American and a Brit take turns crossing the pond to learn about sports culture in the UK and the USA. I'm Adam Jordan, your resident American.
And I'm Harry Collins, your resident Brit. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing pretty well. In terms of the sporting world, I feel like we've talked about this several times, that we are just in the heat of this beautiful time of year where there's just so much happening. Some would argue there's too much happening because you just can't possibly keep up with all of it. The NBA is well underway, which is very significant because neither you or I really pay much attention to the NBA at all. Yeah, maybe that's something that we need to do at some point. I feel like we both need to give it a go at some point. But anyway,
Sure.
Football is like fully like middle of the best time of year for NFL, just because you're starting to get to all divisional games or mostly divisional games, which is really exciting. You're getting some great matchups. My Steelers are doing great. That's really exciting. But otherwise, yeah, just a lot going on. What have you been watching, Harry?
Obviously my first love is football. The Premier League's been off for a week and a half, which let me just go and enjoy other things. Did I waste a couple of hours very, very early on Sunday morning watching a boxing match? I'm not gonna confirm or deny that. Yes, I actually watched the Steelers-Ravens game. Crazy. Love that we're reclaiming scoring points with our feet in a game called football. Great. Good for us. The WSL back in England is now in it's like really reaching the halfway point, similar with NFL. So those two leagues are really getting quite exciting.
Yep.
And typically when the men's team play their international games, which is what happened this week, which is why we had a break, the WSL teams get the opportunity to play in the main stadiums. So a lot more of the women's teams hosted games in the main stadiums, typically occupied by the men's teams, and that was really fun. My family went down to watch our home team play in the main stadium. Had a good time. It's nice to introduce a different atmosphere. Speaking of my home team, bizarrely, I'm the one wearing a jersey from a New York-based soccer team, and you're the one wearing a Brighton kit. And might I say, Adam, it looks so good on you.
Thank you very much. It was high time that I had one. So I think both of us have had kind of some of our sports allegiances spill over to each other, and that's very much by design. So you have,
for sure,
you have fully gotten me blue pilled in terms of
yes.
Brighton blue, and that is that is something I've been very excited about. So it was high time, after honestly a couple of years of this, it was high time for me to get a jersey.
I completely forgot the most important thing that I watched this week. I went to my first ever live ice hockey game.
You sure did.
And just as you were saying that, I was going to say, oh yeah, my ice hockey team I think is probably the Pittsburgh Penguins. But now I have an English, a South London ice hockey team called the Streatham Redhawks, and it was really good. I think we'll probably discuss ice hockey probably in the next couple of months, and I'd love to sort of go into what I thought of it as an English sports fan. And I want to hear from you where my experience watching this what is like an exotic sport here. I didn't even know it was played less than a mile away from my house. It was amazing. But yeah, I'd love to know how it sort of deviates from the NHL.
Oh yeah,
which I imagine is in a massive way.
Oh, very much. I do want we should break down, like, because you sent me a great list of questions / observations that you and your friends had, and we will break that down on the air some way, whether that's through TikTok or whether that's on here. That is my promise to you. Athlantic
we saw a
viewership.
Fight.
It is excellent. So yeah, we will have to get into that. But that is not the topic of this episode. This episode is all about actually a sport that just wrapped up just a week or two ago, and that is NASCAR. NASCAR racing. That is something
Sure.
that is very different than most racing really everywhere else in the world. So I
Yeah.
know that you're curious about it, Harry, and it's something that yeah, we'll dive into.
Curious. Curious. The word curious is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. I am a ride or die, lifelong fan of Formula One. You have told me about NASCAR in the past, and I'm not a full convert yet. So, where you let me do my TikTok episode on the MLS, I'm ready for you to help convert me into a bit more of an understanding NASCAR fan. I think, like most fans of Formula One, my initial reception to the word NASCAR is kind of straightforward. They never turn right. Not sure how like strategy manifests in NASCAR. So I'm ready. Please try. I'm an open. I'm coming into this with an open mind.
You turn your nose up at it a little bit, and that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
That's okay. Lots of people do,
Sure.
and to be fair, like my own personal like history with NASCAR is complex. When I was a kid growing, I mean, I'm a kid that grew up in North Carolina. It's of anywhere in the United States, really anywhere in the world, North Carolina is one of the places where NASCAR is a bigger deal. It's there's a big tradition of it here. I was a pretty big fan when I was a kid,
Sure.
and then really when I was a teenager, I just kind of stopped caring about it. My favorite driver kind of got toward the tail end of his career, and I just stopped caring about the sport. I didn't find it that interesting. And to be honest, I'm still not as much of a fan as I used to be when I was a kid. I don't watch all of the races. I'm not like a die-hard need to check it out. I probably watch it. I probably watch F1 even just a little bit more now.
Wow.
Yeah, so and that's so my goal, I wouldn't say, is necessarily to convert you to be a fan, and I'm not also saying that I don't like the sport, but I do want to make it clear that it is a very very good, very legitimate motorsport, and really should be held to the same level as any other great racing league.
Wow.
Racing type in the world. It's just different. And I think it's very entertaining, even though I don't get a chance to watch it as much as I used to. So yeah, I would. So you seem to think it's pretty simple, is what I understand. Is what it sounded like you were saying.
I think the cars look awfully similar.
Yep.
The tracks look awfully similar. And again, I'm not even a casual viewer. I've seen clips of it on the internet.
Sure.
I consider me the maximum English sports snob. I also I you know what? My biggest NASCAR education has come from Pixar.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's as much as I know. So please, again, open mind. I'm ready to be proven wrong.
Okay.
But in Formula One, it seems like it's all in like the super technical and the complexities of different tracks and how they suit different drivers. I am ready.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, a lot of what you just said with the technical nature of the sport and the cars and, the differences in the types of tracks, that also very much exists in NASCAR. It may not look like it at first glance. You say, okay, you see these stock cars. I mean, NASCAR is an acronym, as I found out just before we started recording, that you hadn't heard before. NASCAR stands for the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing. SC, the SK in NASCAR,
Yeah.
is the big
Stock
thing
car.
we're talking about. A stock car.
Wow.
You are a little bit more of a car guy than you let on. But stock cars, I know that's probably not your biggest forte. They legitimately began as, like, the sport began as actual cars that were taken off the streets and modified. Not literally off the streets, but I mean, the sport got its start in 1948 as a in the shadow of illegal moonshine distillers literally running from police to evade raids. Yeah.
That's a very cool start.
It really is.
I wasn't. Oh, they God, basically. That's such a good.
You had these bootleggers, as they called them, that would distill moonshine illegally in the rural southeastern United States, and they would soup up their engines to get the cars as fast as they possibly could to get away from the police.
To beat the police?
Yes. And then
they should put that on the poster. That's such a good start.
Yeah, it really is. And they so that was the goal. And then they kind of turned and said, "Hey, we've got these really fast cars, and since the beginning of cars being invented, pretty much people have said, hey, this thing goes fast. I want to see if I can beat this person in their car." So that's organically how NASCAR started. It started on dirt tracks. They were legitimately stock cars, just with engines modified. And over years, that has evolved into a lot of things. I'm not going to get into the deep history of it or how it evolved or anything like that. But suffice it to say, today, if you look at a NASCAR race car, it's not a car right off the street, but it does have a lot of, similar qualities. It looks more similar. You're not going to see a Mercedes on the track, the W15 or whatever they're at in Formula One. You're never going to see something that looks remotely like that on the streets over in Europe. But you will see the Chevrolet Camaro that is run by a great driver like Chase Elliott. You're going to see that car. It's going to look a lot like the Chevy Camaro that's on the street here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that still doesn't answer a question as to how is it not that simple, because it actually kind of flies in the face of that. It sounds like, okay, you've got these stock cars, and a lot of them actually are like very, very, very similar. You can't modify them too much. You can modify the ride height a little bit. You can modify the pressure that goes in the tires. All the tires are stock. Most of the parts are stock. So a lot of those advantages, kind of similar to what you have in Formula One, a lot of those advantages come in the smallest of details. You have, if you can get the right, also the fuel is stock, I should say, as well. The smallest of details. So what pressure you're putting in the tires, what that ride height is, what little tweaks here and there you can make to the engine to get just a little bit more performance. You can't really do anything to make the aerodynamics any different than the car next to you. So a lot of those kind of details come in just tweaking little small things about the car. And like in Formula One and other racing classifications around the world, the richest teams with the most resources tend to be able to make those changes more efficiently and are able to win more and more and more and dominate the others. So to say that, to go back to another point about the tracks themselves, and how it's not so simple as just driving around in a circle. First of all, they're ovals, often tri-ovals, so not exactly circles. That's semantics and nitpicking, but just have to say. But the race, the art and the difficulty of NASCAR. Go ahead.
Is the word tri-oval a real word?
It's a word that I've only ever heard used in NASCAR. I've never heard anybody else use it. Yeah, it's
that's it. It's an Athlantic scoop. Adam's just taught the whole of England a new word.
Sometimes when I was thinking about presenting NASCAR to the English audience,
Yes.
there's a lot of it that I realize is just going to be tough to comprehend. And I don't mean that
That's right.
in a, hey, we're American, we're bigger and better than you. It's more like a just, it's so different.
Sure.
Even,
I'll let you know when that happens.
thank you.
Okay, so sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as driving on a tri-oval.
A tri-oval, which I should explain, and maybe it's self-explanatory at this point.
Oh, it's so self-explanatory.
Okay,
Don't
your
worry.
oval, you got a little triangle on it. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Just had to, because maybe not everybody. Anyway, okay. So you have, the lengths of these tracks vary. That changes a lot of how these races are run. I talked before about how the very beginnings of the sport were on dirt tracks. We are way past that. They actually have gone back and added a couple of dirt tracks back to the calendar, but it's honestly a little bit more of a novelty. Yes, and like they count, they're part of the season, but it was a little bit more, and they brought it back as like a novelty. Hey, we're bringing it back to the roots of the sport, which is these community tracks where people do still race on dirt, and hey, this is the beginning of the sport.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
great, Adam. You're off to a very good start. Dirt tracks.
Yeah, so that's
fine. Okay,
that's
cool.
a very small part of it. So
sure.
Overall, there's 3 different tracks to think about. Plus, you can add a 4th because there are select road courses as well that are added. There's a few on the calendar. So yes, in fact, they do turn right multiple times on the calendar, including actually as of last season, they started having a street race on the streets of Chicago, which is
that's very cool.
Yes, it was definitely very different and very cool, very unique. So
NASCAR has one less street race in America than Formula One.
It's true. That is very true. And yeah, unique was the wrong word there. Unique to NASCAR. Obviously, not unique that it's a street race. So there's 3 different types of oval tracks or tri-oval tracks. There are short tracks, which are less than a mile in length. There are speedways, which are between 1 mile and 2 miles, but usually they're about 1 to 1.5 miles. And then you have super speedways, which are the speedways that are 1.8, 1.9 to 2 or more miles, and these things are huge. They have these are really super speedways are the largest stadiums that you'll see at in the country, really, and I can't verify this, but probably the world as well. They have the super speedways are the ones that everybody thinks of when they think of like high octane NASCAR action. The crown jewel race of the year, the very first race of the season, the Daytona 500, is at the Daytona International Speedway, which is a 2-mile super speedway. The largest track on the circuit is a little bit more than 2 miles, and it's called Talladega in Alabama. The track is the widest that there is. It's the longest that there is, and the banking on that track is 33 degrees. It is it's unreal. So you go from that to a track that's half a mile long, and think about that. Those strategies are going to be very different. You can't drive. I mean, just conceptually, without knowing anything else about the sport, Harry. If you are getting ready for a race, you're probably not going to be driving a half-mile track the same as you are a 2-mile track with 33-degree banking.
As you said, when you were talking about the tracks, I immediately thought of what I think the Daytona track is, which I think absolutely huge. You look out to the horizon, it's just stretching all the way around. When you said less than a mile, that's absolutely insane, especially since they're like. They're obviously like these are oval-sized, tri-oval-sized shaped tracks. The less than a mile tracks must be absolutely mental. firstly, the atmosphere there must be incredible. Secondly, you must absolutely shred tires. And like the corners must be far tighter. So like the deltas in straightaway speed and corner speed must be incredibly high. Those deltas must be super far apart. Whereas on like the big Talladega, how do I say that? Talladega.
Talladega, you had it.
That Talladega track, like the corners must be far wider and with a far bigger radius. I'm shocked to know that the same cars will do both sides. Now, obviously, you know, in Formula One, we've got Monaco, which is a very, very short track, and like Monza, which is a big, long track. But I think while the distance, I had no idea NASCAR had the same sort of variance as that.
There's a lot. There's a lot of variation between the tracks. So a race at Talladega versus a race at Bristol, which is a very, very famous short track, right? The most famous short track, could not be more different. In fact, to put into perspective how small the track is, they actually, I want to say this was about 5-6 years ago. They actually played a college football game on a field that they put in the middle of Bristol Motor Speedway. Now,
cool.
It was a lot. The sight lines weren't good. It was still way too big of a stadium to be a football stadium, but it was reasonable. And the watching it was not. I mean, I wasn't there, but you know, it was a good experience for the people who went.
There's something very cool about that, though.
Yeah, and
okay, so we've got your massive tracks. We've got the medium size and the smaller tracks. You also mentioned that there's a street track. Why does Daytona and the big tracks come with so much like prestige?
I would say they come with a lot of prestige just because they are the highest speed tracks. You'll get...
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah, you'll get... So obviously you're going to go faster on the tracks where you don't have to brake at all. You're not on the brakes really at all on those tracks. So all of the action comes from these giant packs that the cars end up working themselves into. In fact, the cars get so powerful and so fast, they can reach speeds of more than 200 miles per hour if they're just left unchecked. So those, they actually put something on top of the engine called a restrictor plate that reduces the air intake into the engine without getting too technical, so that it slows the cars down, because they got to a point where it was completely unsafe for the cars to be going as fast as they were. Right. The effect of that happening, of putting those restrictor plates on, you'll hear the super speedway races, sometimes called restrictor plate races for that reason. The effect of that is that the cars bunch up into packs, and it becomes a game of aerodynamics and drafting with partners. There's a lot of strategy that goes into it, where you have to time your pit stops to go with a teammate, or if you don't have a teammate nearby you in the pack, at least a driver that you're friendly with, a car that has the same manufacturer, teams that you make alliances with throughout the season. You have to pit basically at the same time. Otherwise, you won't have the draft or the slipstream available to go fast enough to catch back up once you've pit. And you pit a lot more, as you were talking about the tires. You pit a lot more in NASCAR than you do in Formula One. I mean, pitting 3 times in Formula One is a massive... that's
a huge mistake.
That's a bad... Yeah, you're not going to do that unless something has gone wrong. In NASCAR, you have to pit pretty much at least 3 times. Some of that is because we also refuel in NASCAR and don't in Formula One. But a lot of that is because of the tire wear. They do get absolutely shredded, especially on those shorter tracks.
So I'll admit the last sort of real British snobbery that I was considering was that so much of Formula One is like a dance between the teams and their strategies, and everyone's got to cover the same number of laps in Formula One, but working out what is the quickest way to do so by using different tire compounds and different different strategies is one of the things that like keeps a relatively boring F1, an F1 race where there isn't much overtaking. The strategies become really important. I assumed that like bare knuckle boxing, there was absolutely no strategy in NASCAR. When you mentioned teammates, hey, that was news. I had no idea that teams ran multiple cars. Also, when you were like, when you mentioned like cars that you are friendly with, firstly, I have no idea how many cars are in a NASCAR race. In Formula One, it's 20. In MotoGP, it's like 30 something. How many teams? How many like drivers in a single? How many cars in a single race?
So there's 40 cars in a race, and
40.
Each team can have a maximum of 4 cars, 4 drivers, 4 cars in a race.
Wow. Okay. And is one of those drivers like the team's main or priority driver? Like, do they have like team leaders?
Kind of, but not at all in the same way as Formula One. You certainly have some that are better than others, but it's sure. Not as there's not as much of a pecking order.
And what makes a good NASCAR driver then?
That is a terrific question. Usually it's somebody who can excel on multiple different types of tracks. It's also sure. Somebody that has the ability to work with other drivers and use kind of those slipstreams where the tracks are mandate it. And then on those shorter tracks, it's somebody who can navigate basically passing and being passed at every single point, because you are constantly battling one-on-one with drivers. A lot of it is or not even one-on-one. Sorry. You're constantly battling with multiple drivers at one time. You've got a driver on both sides of you. You can be 3 wide. At a short track, a lot of times you've got somebody right in front of you, right behind you. You've got somebody right on your bumper, physically bumping you. You have to. A lot of it is a big mental game, because these races can be very, very, very long. They can be upwards of 3.5 hours. The longest race on the circuit can be up to 4. It can be about 4 hours. Bloody hell. It is. It's a game of endurance. It really is, because you are just constantly, interacting, engaging with other drivers, and like I said, it's a long race. So somebody who can endure all of that, and be a good communicator, be somebody that is, be somebody that can strategize, when the best time to make your move is, much like any other racer. That's the drivers who are going to come out on top.
Wow. So you said the races are frequently between 3 and 4 hours. How many races are we talking about in a season?
There are 38 races on the top the top level of NASCAR, the Cup Series. There's actually 3 what they call national touring series. There's the NASCAR Cup Series. There's the NASCAR, I think it's originally called the National Series, but it's been sponsored by several different sponsors. Now it's called the Xfinity Series. And then the third tier is the NASCAR Truck Series, that's also had several different sponsors. Yeah, so they basically race stock pickup trucks.
That's so dumb.
Hey, we're trying to cut out the English snobbery here, but yes, it is.
Yeah, sorry, you're right.
I will say it is uniquely American. We will go with that as I sip my water.
Well put. All right. So, what is in Formula One? It's a 5-day event. We've got practice on the Friday, we've qualifying on the Saturday, we've got the race on the Sundays. Does NASCAR follow the same program?
So that's changed a lot over the years. In fact, and this is kind of a product of, like I said, I don't follow the sport as closely as I did when I was younger. I had to go back and look, because I know that NASCAR has changed their qualifying procedures several times. So it roughly follows that category where you'll have practice on Friday, but I think sometimes they've actually, in recent years, they've condensed it to kind of everything happens on Saturday and then a race on Sunday.
Wow.
Where like you will practice on Friday, and then oftentimes, at least in the past, you practiced on Friday, and then you had another like short practice on Saturday, and then basically 10 minutes later, you're qualifying.
Wow.
They've changed qualifying quite a bit over the past few years. Now the way it works is they kind of do the F1 equivalent of like a Q1 and a Q2, where you'll have two rounds and two groups that kind of set the order based on time, obviously. So it's a little bit more complicated than that because it differs from type of track to type of track, but roughly it is pretty similar. I would say.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's. Go ahead.
I'm feeling a little not defeated, but I really didn't think I would come around so quickly.
Yeah, well, and also think about it this way. I mean, we talk about the different. One of the differences that I alluded to before is that in NASCAR they fuel the cars up, and in Formula One they don't for safety reasons. But in NASCAR, one of the things that you have to think about strategy wise as a race team, so not only drivers but the crew chiefs. All the different engineers, but that looks a little bit different than it does in Formula One. It's really just a crew chief, and a couple other people that are kind of making those decisions, and speak. You only really have a couple people talking to the driver, the crew chief and the spotter, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you have to navigate fuel windows. When are you going to run out of fuel? Compared to when your tires are going to start to wear out. Are you lining that up at certain tracks? Are you lining that up with a friend that can help you out to give you a little bit of a draft when you come out of pit lane? But again, another kind of one of the complexities is, unlike in Formula One, in NASCAR, you have somebody talking to you constantly in your ear. You have somebody who's a spotter, who's somebody who is literally high atop the track, watching you and watching the cars around you, helping you, know, okay, hey, here's somebody there's somebody on your right side. They're, right kind of at your door here. They're kind of like right at your quarter panel. Like it's a constant conversation, and it's really fast paced, and it's a fascinating thing to listen to.
That's very cool. Because I think obviously in TV broadcasts we don't hear everything that Formula One drivers say, but I think it's far less frequently, and it's typically the delivery of like really, really crucial information where F1 drivers are expected to sort of look out for themselves in that element. But I guess F1 drivers only have to worry about 19 other cars,
right,
and maybe 3 of them are near them.
I was gonna say, that's
that's
the other piece.
These guys have to look out for 8 cars that could one on either side, 3 at the front, 3 at the back. Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean,
and you wouldn't expect somebody to be able to pull that off and check all your mirrors and check your blind spot,
totally,
and overtake someone at the same time.
It wouldn't be possible. I mean, so think about it this way: Formula One cars are definitely faster than NASCAR stock cars. That's not even remotely a question. But at the those super speedways, when we talk about why those are so prized, in terms of prestige, I mean, think about the skill involved there when you're going at just around a little bit below 200 miles per hour, and you have directly next to you on one side, directly next to you on the other side, somebody directly behind you and directly in front of you doing that same speed. That is a difficult thing to do without crashing, and it involves I don't think necessarily, I've thought about this a lot, I don't necessarily think that one sport has an objective skill set, or one sport or one type of driver is objectively better than another. It's just a wildly different skill set that you have to have.
Just the the last thing that I want to ask about NASCAR, and you've sort of alluded to it there, like safety, crashing, is NASCAR like, does it, like, do people get injured much? I know that there have been like fatalities in both sports, Formula One, and this isn't a direct comparison between Formula One and NASCAR, but there have been fatalities in both sports in their long history. But like, Formula One's taken a lot of steps recently to put like driver safety first, and we've seen that come to fruition. Unfortunately, but glad that the drivers are okay more of the time. Is NASCAR like safe sport? Is it following the same pathways to like protecting drivers? Are crashes still like common?
Yeah, so crashes happen every single race. It's rare to have.
Whoa!
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
Yikes.
rare to have a race where there's not a crash. That said, some of them are really bad, really scary. That said, fortunately, there hasn't been a fatality at the top level of the sport since Dale Earnhardt's infamous crash in 2001 that killed him actually at Daytona, at the Daytona 500, at that prestigious race we were talking about. Since then, there's been a lot of safety improvements to the cars. They've actually changed the tracks up a little bit too. Pretty much every single wall at a NASCAR track is what they call a safer barrier. That I don't know if they have that. Do they have anything like that over there in Formula One, or different types of?
If you tell me what a safer barrier is.
So basically, it's a wall with it's like a wall with a little bit of space, and then kind of a second wall, and there's like some kind of padding basically between it. It's just a wall that basically has some give to it.
I think Armaco is still used in like some street circuits where like a safer barrier can't be used, but most like high speed circuits in Formula One uses like a big padded wall.
Yeah.
And like certain parts of like a street track, especially Monaco, have really big, like crumple zones on like high priority corners where such like significant impact can happen. So I think we're probably in the same page there.
Yeah, I mean, I would think about it. So there's that piece. There's also the cars themselves have gotten a lot safer. I mean, the to your point on the crumple zones, like the crumple zones on a NASCAR stock car have a lot of give that put a lot of metal between a driver and harm. I would also say that they've since Dale Earnhardt's crash, all of the drivers have to wear the Hans device that is pretty much standard within the racing world now. So all of those things put together kind of make for safer. I mean, certainly no motorsport is completely safe, but that's kind of some of the steps they've taken. And I would also say, I mean, to your point, I mean, I one of the things is, I think one thing that happens a lot as we're recording these episodes is there'll be points where you and I don't even realize, what the potential things that could be shocking are to somebody else, to each other. Like the idea that, there's only, there's always a crash in a race, like that, the fact that was surprising.
Wild.
One thing I didn't really make clear as much with the short tracks. So the two most popular types of racing in NASCAR by far are the super speedways and the short tracks. Give us something huge or give us something small. And part of the reason that short track racing is so exciting, even though the speeds are a lot lower, is because these cars, like these drivers, they will literally pretty much move each other out of the way. There's contact happening between the cars all the time. And they're able to do it in ways that more often than not don't result in a crash. So, it's really interesting stuff. I will say one other thing about NASCAR that kind of is obvious. I mean, it is a Southern sport that came up in a very Southern tradition that is, it has had its diversity issues, to say the least. That is a very nice way of putting it. I mean, we've seen the same thing in Formula One. There's not really many women that are involved or at least allowed to be at the top level of the sport. I don't think Formula One has ever had a female driver in the Formula One ranks. NASCAR has had some female drivers in the Cup Series, but very few and far between. There's only been a handful.
Sure.
drivers of color. Not many. There's only been around 20 or so black drivers in that's at all levels of NASCAR, all three of those national touring series. So there's a long way to go with that. Certainly the fan base, the very core group of fans, oftentimes very Southern, very white, let's put it this way. In 2020, they had to ban the Confederate flag at tracks.
Sure.
And
that seems to be
when you have to do that kind of says it all.
Yeah,
that's not to leave us on a down point with it, but that is a very real
Sure.
struggle within the sport, and one that it has to figure out if it's ever to get to the point where it wants to go, which is being the best respected racing circuit in the world.
Sure. I don't know if I'm disappointed at how quickly I crumbled, but actually you've made some very compelling points. There's a lot in that I didn't know. I think I'm very interested to watch a very short track race. I think that'll be like the easiest, pathway from a traditional European motorsports fan into American motorsports. And here's the thing, and this is something I have to remember, if you want an American version of Formula One, like IndyCar races on far more like street circuits and like right and left turn circuits.
Totally.
So like this, it's important to say that like NASCAR is like the pinnacle of this very specific type of stock car racing. One that I didn't really pay much respect to, and I think that'll change. I had no idea there was so much strategy or so much variance involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we've won you over.
I will watch one. I would like to watch it with you.
Yes,
but I will watch one.
And we will not watch it. We will not watch a road course race because it is.
No.
It would be strange. Personally, I find it strange watching it. And it's not representative. Right. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think we ran a little bit over where we wanted to, but Harry, I think you've got some revenge to dish out to me on Sport Math this week.
Do have some revenge. Now, I am actually going to be a little bit generous, and this sports math question is not nearly as bad as yours, which, again, I really liked yours. It just challenged my geography.
You were okay, I just want to make it clear. You were hyping this up earlier. You were like, this is going to be brutal. Just like you can't cop out now.
Okay. So mine is going to follow the same format as my first one. Okay. 2 episodes ago. I want you to give me the following answers of trivia in descending order numerically.
Okay.
So give me the highest number to the lowest number.
Okay.
And those questions are the number of NFL logos that include mammals.
Okay.
Not including human beings.
Oh, not including... Okay.
Vikings, Raiders, get out of here.
Okay.
Animals that are mammals. The next trivia is the number of Women's World Cups won by Team USA. And the third one is the number of Major League teams, men's Major League teams in Chicago.
In Major League,
now, I will give...
Are we talking Major League?
Not,
what do we mean?
Hockey, basketball, football...
And baseball.
Baseball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Not soccer.
Not soccer. Okay.
So.
Okay, and descending order.
NFL logos with mammals. Number of Women's World Cups won by Team USA, and the number of Major League teams in Chicago.
So a couple things here, and I'll try to be quick about this. But my biggest thing.
Sure.
Is the first thing that came to mind with the NFL logos were a lot of birds. So those are not mammals.
Oh.
So I have to think about ones that are animals that are not. Okay. So I know the Dolphins, the Texans, they have like a little bowl. Let's see. The Colts are a horseshoe. They don't have a horse in their logo.
Correct.
So let's see. Giants, Steelers, Browns, Ravens, no. Patriots, Dolphins, as we've said, yes. Jets, Bills, yes, that's one. Let's think. So that's 3. Vikings, wow. Packers, no. Cardinals, obviously, no. Chargers, Seahawks, that's a bird, isn't it?
That is a bird.
Broncos, that's 4.
The Broncos.
Let's see what else we got. I'll give myself another little bit. Saints, Falcons, Panthers. Sure. I'm literally in the city.
Ooh, in the same city.
Easy to forget that they're an NFL team, to be fair.
Sure.
Jaguars is 6. And that Lions is 7. I feel like that's it. If it's not it, there's somebody watching / listening to this that is absolutely screaming at me. So that is 7. I think there's been around 7 women's World Cups. I think there's only been about that many, roughly. I want to say it started in 1991. I think was the first one. It was called the M&M's Cup or something. So we won. So I'm gonna say then that we won 2 of them in the 90s. This might not be a good way to do it. So I'm gonna do 5. Oh man. So is this one the smallest one, or the middle one? I'm going to go with this one being the smallest one. So we won in... I don't know the number, clearly.
Okay.
What can you tell me the other question again?
The last question is the number of major league teams in Chicago.
Major league teams in Chicago. So got the Blackhawks, we got the White Sox, we got the Bulls, we've got the Cubs, and... we've got the Bears, so that's 5. So, oh, wow. Okay. So we're going to say in descending order, my guess is going to be NFL teams, World Cups, Chicago.
So you think NFL teams, then the World Cups and Chicago. And you've got numbers for the NFL teams?
Yeah, I'm going to say 7 NFL teams. I'm going to say 6 World Cups. No, what am I talking about? We have 4 World Cups. It's on our shirt. Okay, it is NFL teams at 7. It is Chicago at 5. It is World Cups at 4. Come at me.
That's very, very well done. I thought, I was confident that you were going to get the Women's World Cup one because we actually, the stars are on the shirt. You won 2 back-to-back. You actually won the first one in 1991, the M&M's World Cup, hosted in China. You absolutely crushed that. And then I thought you were going to wet the bed and say the wrong number. You got the major league teams in Chicago. Really hoped you thought you were going to drop just one of them. And then I even given both of those. And those were the 2 easy ones. I really didn't think you were going to absolutely nail the logos that include mammals, and I didn't prep you for that at all. I was absolutely sure you were going to drop one of the mammal logos. So
I almost fumbled
incredibly
that.
Well done.
I almost fumbled that so hard, and then you know what reminded me was the videos of the post final celebration of the last World Cup that we won, where they're singing, "We've got 4 stars on our shirt. We've got 4 stars."
And they're handing out the new kit, and it's got the...
so good.
Adam, that was very well done. I think I do need to up the ante. So yeah, incredibly well done, Adam.
Thank you.
Many congratulations. I'm only slightly annoyed.
Well, yeah, I don't know what this says about me that I'm just crushing the sport math, but I'm proud of myself. All right.
It's reassuring.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. All right. Well, before we get out of here, couple of things. One, give us a like on the episode. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a follow on TikTok and check out all of our great content there. Most of it being Harry, to be fair, because frankly, I've been so swamped with work, and Harry is not also swamped with work, but is not using that as an excuse. So.
Adam was trapped in my cupboard for 3 weeks.
I was, and you'll only get that joke if you follow us on TikTok or you see us on your For You page.
Exactly.
So check us out there. And big new announcement: we are officially on Spotify. So give us a follow on Spotify. Rate us 5 stars. Give us all of the good reviews. We're excited to bring Athlantic to more places. But yeah, until then. This has been a blast, and I'll see you next time, Harry.
Yep. I'll see you next time, Adam.
Bye now.